Everyone, this is our second edition of Before the Prompt, AI Unfiltered. It's a monthly series that we are trying to...
We'll get to weekly. I bet you
we'll get to weekly later. So it's me, Madhu Shashanka. I'm the co-founder and chief scientist of Concentric AI, and my wonderful colleague, Sullivan. He's the chief information security and strategy officer for the company. We have a lot of fun here, and we are living in interesting times. AI is evolving, changing, advancing rapidly. Pick the word you like, and there's so much to talk about. So Lane and I, we want to give a sneak peek into the kinds of things we are talking about internally, the kinds of news items we are paying attention to, and of course, all of that informs us here, the broader team, in terms of how we help enterprises secure your data and AI in this new exciting era of AI everywhere. So
well,
with
ultimately, and Madhu, I didn't mean to cut you off, but ultimately, innovation's moving so fast that it's really hard to keep up with everything. I've had a lot of people, great feedback, by the way, on the first recording we did, and it was mainly very positive around just the innovations happen so fast, and the things that they can take from this kind of material is actionable. What they do every day.
Absolutely. It's overwhelming, right? Every news website you go to, half of the news items are talking about AI. Your LinkedIn feed, your Twitter feed, it's just AI everywhere. And at some point, it's a cognitive overload. So what do you pay attention to? And half of what you're reading there's really nothing new there, but buried in those nuggets, there are some really interesting things. So hopefully we pick those few interesting things in these series and give some of our perspectives. So let's get started with what it was the talk of the town everywhere. I mentioned was, because it was very short-lived. It's the latest model announced by Anthropic. They called it Fable. And it was so short-lived. When they announced it, I thought I'd have time to play around with it. And then just as I was heading out from my desk, Lane, I quickly tried some stupid prompts. Now in hindsight, I wish I had put in some real effort and thoughtful prompts. But by the time I got back to it, it was gone. It had been yanked.
Yeah, crazy, right? I think that we'll get into some of the reasons why, but I think we're seeing a lot of this. People are wanting to race the horse and get ahead of the pack, and then all of a sudden somebody's got to pull those reins back, and we're seeing some of that. Some of that we are living through. Ultimately, in the end, it'll be a sharper arrow, but we're witnessing some of the challenges of hey, we've just moved forward. Wait a minute, we've got to pull back a little bit on that.
Yeah, and it's happening out in public, in the public sphere. Inside tech, in tech companies, for those of our listeners and viewers who are not inside the technology industry, this is sort of par for the course, right? Inside tech, you move fast, you break things, you build stuff, you try it. But this is happening on a societal scale. Like Anthropic released this model. There were some concerns about the risks internally, about how advanced the capabilities were, and how potentially some of our geopolitical adversaries could manipulate it or use it for wrong ends. And within a day, the United States government decided the risk was not worth keeping the model in public, and they forced Anthropic to shut it down.
That's interesting, right? First of all, I would love to know what your first prompt was, because it would have been great if it was something like, "Tell me the best dad joke that we could have had here."
That's true.
I'm assuming that's not what it was.
No, I wish it was, because I'm always looking for that joke.
But the scale at which impact can happen with a lot of the things that we see with AI, it isn't like somebody made a mistake in a memory chip, or there's a failed formula in an Excel sheet or something. Like, these are massively important. And I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember exactly, but I think they had to remove access first to individuals that were outside the United States, like foreign individuals. And Anthropic was having a hard time, even inside, trying to break that access apart, which ultimately led to hey, let's just turn it off till we figure it out.
You're right. I think there was a lot of nuance in exactly how that operational decision came about. But yeah, I mean, in my prior roles in large enterprises, I was party to some of these decisions and how they play out in an enterprise, right? It's not easy for a company to turn off access to non-US people. Like, how do you do that, right? Even within the company itself. So it's I'm hopeful that the model capabilities, at least with some guardrails, I'm positive it keeps coming out. Everybody's releasing new models, and open source is very much keeping up. But Fable is an interesting, definitely it's an interesting example of where the technology has kind of run past our ability as a society, and from a regulator perspective, from a governmental perspective, to just keep up with what's going on, right?
Well, I think it also highlights some of the other things that we're seeing evolve in the government space around data privacy and data residency and things like that, is trying to provide the right regulation and control over who has access to which data, when and how, and that kind of stuff. We have an executive order that we can't allow certain nations to access our sensitive information. The same thing with a lot of other regions. I think this comes down to that same thing, right? And it's funny because AI is highlighting that, but I also think that AI can help with that. And that's true with a lot of different areas with AI.
Yeah. And actually, to your point, I read that Andrei Karpathy, who is one of the foundational figures in the development of a lot of these foundation models, apparently he couldn't get access because I don't know how true this is, but apparently he's not a U.S. person. So, isn't that wild?
That's fantastic.
But anyway, quick aside, talking about dad jokes, I was giving a talk at one of these security conferences, and Lane, I did ask AI for a dad joke, and it gave me a good one. So the audience were like security practitioners, right?
Okay, well, lay it on us.
So I said, here's how the joke goes. I asked AI for a dad joke, and the AI pulled up my plans to secure AI in the enterprise.
Which, hey, wait, you probably could have been very effective, but they took Fable 5 from you, so.
There you go. If only I had Fable, it wouldn't have been a joke.
It wouldn't have been. Yes, that's fantastic. With the whole thing with the mythos, and we talked about mythos quite a bit, and the pigeons and all the feedback we got with all those things. What happened to the pigeons? It's funny that as fast as the innovation is happening, right? And we talk about a lot of the things that are coming out. Man, it's just massive. The biotech, the health, the even like the stars and the planets and pretty, because I think that was one of the things with Fable 5 too, is it was able to take our planet movements and predict a solar eclipse or something like that. It's becoming like very, very good. And so the people that are developing these, I'm going to switch real quick because some things in the news around the people that were working at Alphabet, and I think you and I were talking about a news article on this, but some high profile people left, and where did they go? They didn't like go underground. They went to go work for a competitor. And so like the competition's getting stiff.
Yes, it's a crazy time to be alive right now. It's no holds barred. There's OpenAI, Anthropic. They're both extremely well-funded, well-capitalized. And of course, there are existing players not to be left behind. Google, NVIDIA, Microsoft in the enterprise space, Amazon, Tesla, the list goes on, right? So everybody's making moves. I'm frankly very excited in terms of just the pace of innovation and all the things we can expect.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a bumpy ride.
So let me ask you something, because we're pushing models out super quick, right? But there's two things that stand out to me. The first thing is, what's the biggest hindrance in the innovation of AI? Like, what's slowing it down the most? What do you think?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking me that. I have some very pointed perspectives in this place. So if we take a step back and look at where all the advancements are coming in terms of domains or tasks, it's what I call high verifiability tasks, right? If there is a concrete, explicit way to measure success, and if it's cheap to verify and validate whether something succeeded or not, those are the domains where AI is showing a lot of progress, starting with coding, right? Coding is as verifiable as it can get, arguably, right? Either
yes,
code works or it doesn't work. And then math, right? And a lot of the natural sciences, like you alluded. Yesterday, I was listening to a Quanta podcast where they were talking about black holes with hair. So apparently,
what podcast was this?
So Quanta magazine is fantastic. It's my favorite magazine. They talk about the latest advancements in fundamental sciences, and they were talking about black holes. Apparently, we just think of this circular blob beyond the event horizon. You can't see anything, but there's an information paradox. Some information leaks out. We don't quite understand. So there are these theories that it has hair, like it's not a perfectly smooth object, and they're trying to detect what that is, and they're trying to use AI and stuff like that. But anyway, so back to my point, all these tasks that are highly verifiable is where AI is advancing rapidly, and where the verification is feasible and practical, right? Today I was reading an article about math. I think last time we discussed, Lane, about how OpenAI solved the problem, one of Paul Erdős's problem of how many maximally, what's the maximum number of pairs of points at equal distance you can lay out on a plane.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I remember, yes.
Yeah, and OpenAI solved it. Well, they didn't. The AI solved it, and mathematicians verified it. But there was a great article today in Slate where he makes the meta point that what this is pointing to is, in math, there are two kinds of problems. There are a lot of hard problems, way too many, right? Some are genuinely hard, but some are hard enough, but we haven't spent our time on it. So he calls it the carpet bombing approach, where you just unleash these foundation models so that this latter class can be taken care of to unveil the genuinely hard problems that human mathematicians can spend time on, which was an interesting perspective.
Yes, yes. I think where we are today from an AI perspective, I totally agree with you, by the way. But I think the piece that's going to start to put things together is the memory piece. And I think that is the part that will start to create those. You're talking about like the cost of the decisions, right? How accurate can it be, and how much does it cost us to get to that accuracy? Because if you try until you get right, the faster you try, the cheaper it is, right? But I think memory is a big thing, and I think the stocks would show you most of the companies that are working in that space are just going to the moon, right?
That's right. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised looking at my retirement portfolio. I was like, what happened? There were a bunch of memory stuff.
Yeah, so I think that memory piece is going to be a big driver in that. But I think all of what we're talking about here is interesting when we start talking about organizations and what they can do and what's available to versus what will be available tomorrow.
I think I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you, Lane, so I think you'll be back. While we're waiting for Lane,
we had a lightning strike.
You're back. And you survived.
Big old lightning strike. Sorry.
Okay. You were talking about memory and all of these other things that we need for the AI to really work and be effective. There were a couple of things that came out this month. One was a report by Anthropic's data team, or the BI team. I forget what they call it internally. But they were talking about how they're using Claude for 95% of all their BI queries and analytics functions. That was the highlight in the byline, but there was something else interesting I took from that blog. To get to that 95%, it was not just the models. The models are great. It's the capability, but it's everything around it that they had to engineer together to make the system work. Without all these other pieces, what they meant by these other pieces were data curation, putting all kinds of guardrails and scaffolding, people making sure the documentation were right, and putting the right labels on the data. All of those things, when they took it out and just had the models, the accuracy dropped to 21%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Isn't that saying something, right?
Yes.
Here we are, like a lot of the conversation just assumes, at least in the popular press, models are coming and they're going to solve everything by themselves. They'll coordinate themselves, and there'll be Skynet type super intelligence and whatnot. But basic stuff, there's still there's a big role for us humans in terms of judgment and what problems to work on and what matters, and just making sure all the other artifacts are there for the AI to consume and actually produce useful results.
Yeah. And then you get into the cyclical piece of when AI trains AI.
That's right. And that was the, what did they call it? The self-learning loop or something like that. That was a great blog post they put out, and they actually called for a deliberate slowing down of innovation, this self-learning loop. Conceptually, it's kind of scary, where You have AI training AI and just
Yeah.
going in the loop by itself. Um, yeah, the fact that it's coming from one of the leading foundation model providers is quite something.
Yeah, and so I've taken a lot of time to utilize some of the tools that have been out there, like the Cloud Code and the Codex. One of the things that really stands out to me, and I believe that we're going to see this explosion of structured data. And the reason why is because the code that's being developed by AI, which is starting to really take hold. Um, AI loves data. Like the more data you feed it, the more effective it is. I think the output is the same way. The more you use AI, the more data it consumes, the more it creates in order for it to be more effective. And I think the more we see developers move to the use of AI for coding, we're going to see our structured environments just explode.
Absolutely. And I think, structured and unstructured too, right? Because AI is being used for
Sure.
all kinds of generation, right? And, back in the early days of IT and the internet lane and the digital era,
I don't remember
people.
that, Madhu.
You're way too young. Yes. So am I. But we used to talk about digital exhaust and how data is increasing and doubling
Yes.
every whatever. Just imagine what's going to happen at agentic scale. It's just
Yeah.
as is, this problem is crazy and
Yeah.
it's hard to deal with. I mean, everybody we talk to, and in our own personal career histories, we have seen it firsthand. This data problem is going to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A
And
lot of organizations that have failed to properly implement data hygiene processes. This is going to shine a light on that, and a lot of organizations have already seen that, and they've started. I think we're going to see a lot more doing that, but we can't, like, organizations can't continue to just layer on AI into an environment without data hygiene, and I think that's going to be critical. I totally agree.
and actually, I think AI plays an amplifying role, right? It's like if it's a messy environment, it's going to amplify the mess and
Yes.
it's going to make it a lot worse.
Yep.
But if you took the time and diligence and effort to do the basic data hygiene, your classifications, your categorization, it's going to amplify the benefits because
Yes.
it's working off of a foundation. So I think there's tremendous opportunity if you position yourself for it.
Yes. That's great. That's right.
If you're lazy, then you're gonna pay. And one other thing, Lane, you and I have talked about it. Every time, at least in the beginning of agentic AI, I would cringe whenever I would hear people talk about thousands of agents operating in chains, and doing things themselves, which all sounds great, but conceptually it never made sense to me. Um, because if we do a thought experiment, right? If we have a chain of 10 agents, um, let's say each agent is 95% accurate, very accurate for a lot of enterprise workflows. But assume that each agent is feeding his output to the next one as an input, and there's a chain, which is pretty common in enterprise workflows, pipelines. We have all kinds of pipelines. But if you ask, okay, with each one with 95% accuracy, what's the accuracy at the end of the chain? That's 0.95 to the power of 10. That's a little less than 60%.
Oh,
That's
that's good. That's what we want.
and you want to rely on that, right? Less
Well,
than 60%.
put that in a car and hope that you're going to get to where you're going to go 65% of the time. That wouldn't work, right?
Exactly, right? And it's so anybody, my buddies, like people I talk to, I post this and their eyes glaze over. It's like, yeah, okay, there's some math geek telling me to do some math I don't like. But I found a real study. There were some researchers that found, let me get this right. So they found a real clinical example where three AI medical tools, they chained them together. So there was a mammogram analyzing tool, 90% accuracy, which is pretty good, probably par to humans. And then there was another transcription tool with AI, which converted clinical recordings to patient notes. That was 85%, pretty good, apparently, for that particular use case.
I wouldn't want to be the 15%, but yeah, okay.
Exactly. And then there was a diagnostic tool where you give patient notes and it diagnoses what was the issue. That had a benchmark accuracy of 97%. Very nice, right? But they chained it together. So the mammogram tool, then the patient notes, and then a final diagnosis. Altogether, the reliability was only 74%.
Yeah, that's
like
not good.
1 in 4 was diagnosed wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, I was looking for this real example. This is the point I was trying to make.
It's a great example. I also believe that it highlights the piece of innovation that we're in, because eventually it will be much better than it is. And the only way it's going to get there is if we continue to invest in the areas to make it get better. And when it does, imagine the benefits that are going to come out of that.
Absolutely. And that's not new, right? That's what we've been doing in software and in the tech world. Capability does not make a product in itself. You take the capability and you build all these other things to make it work in specific use cases. And with AI, that data piece is just going to be so much important.
Yes.
In all ways, that data is coherent, it's governed, it's secured, and all of that good stuff. Okay.
Well, Madhu, I think that we're about ready to wrap up. It went way too fast for me.
I know. This was, every conversation with you, Lane, time flies.
It goes fast.
I'm glad we are making at least making videos out of some of our conversations. So for those of you who are listening or watching this, please send me or Lane, please send your feedback, and we will try to keep this up on a regular cadence once every month. At some point, if this proceeds the way it's proceeding in terms of AI advancements, maybe we'll have to do it weekly then.
Yeah, I think we may have to. And if there's topics that we're not covering, most of what we talk about is completely off the cuff anyway. But if there are topics that we need to cover that we should be, please let us know.
Absolutely. All right. With that, it was a pleasure, Lane. And
thanks
for everyone who tuned in.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.